Hello everyone, welcome back to Complete and Total Random. Today I'm going to be doing a sort of tutorial on how to play KV-1s in War Thunder. So, KV-1s, one of the main things you need to learn about playing KV-1s is how to angle them. Now the KV-1s, like many boxy heavy tanks, and what I mean by that is the heavy tank, if you look at it, its hull is the shape of a rectangle. There's no points or anything, which means that if you angle the hull, you're essentially angling your armor more, which means that you want to angle your hull to increase your armor, to increase your protection. Because if I was to bring a weaker shell or a weaker round, if I was to bring a weaker shell, they could potentially go through just straight through the front, like with this. But if I angle the turret and the hull, you can see that it makes it quite a lot harder to penetrate because of that angle on the armor. Because of that, it increases your armor slope and makes it easier to ricochet and bounce shots. It also increases your chance of ricochet. Now, this applies to all of the KV-1s, but I'm going to be using the KV-1 1942 as an example. Usually I will just bring the APHE shell, given that it has a very good post-pen effect. This one in particular. There is the armor penetrating shells. I will bring APCR because at this BR the enemy tanks are a lot heavier. So you might end up against something you can't pen with a normal gun, so you'll want that APCR, but I wouldn't recommend using it normally. But yeah, let's bring this into the field and we'll go and put this into practice. This is going to be my first tutorial video I'm going to do on the channel. I'm not very good at it yet, so if you guys have any suggestions, just let me know in the comments. So first I'm going to want that M8 fuse round, given that it's got more penetration but still has a good amount of HE filler. That's usually what I'll bring first. I wouldn't recommend bringing many rounds in when you go into a battle. I usually stick with like 25, 30 for on average, like most guns. There's some tanks that I'll make, or some vehicles that I'll make exceptions for. But yeah. Now, the KV-1 series, as far as heavy tanks go, it's quite mobile, it's quite agile, so you can really use that to your advantage when pushing enemies and taking points. As well as it means that you can get to the battlefield a lot quicker than you would expect. Now, whenever I'm driving into combat, if I know, like, oh, there's an entire army of guys in front of me, I'm just gonna send it and get to the front lines. But the second I get to the front lines is when I'm going to want to start angling my tank and only approach while angled. This increases my survivability quite exponentially, especially if somebody just pops around the corner and fires a shot. Because especially with heavy tanks, you don't necessarily need to get the first shot off. You just need to get the better shot off. So as long as you're getting the better shot off, you're good. Now you can see this guy. He's doing as well. You want to angle your tank when approaching. I'll usually angle until I figure out where the threat is. Then I'll get my gun on target. And, well, after that I'll fire. Now, you don't want to heavily rely on your armor in any heavy tank in the game. You're better off to just rely on your firepower, because it's going to be more consistent than your armor. Now, hopefully my teammate stops getting in my way, and I can approach the cap. And I'll always angle towards where I think the enemies are. So given that I've seen those machine guns over there, oh my goodness, these people. Just move out of the way. Now you can see, because he was angled, that shell just bounced right off of him. This is going to bounce right off of me too. I'm always looking around corners, making sure I don't need to rotate any harder. Now, this is when APCR comes in handy. If I know I'm going to be fighting a heavy tank, I can always bring that out. But given that he is straight onto me, I'm just going to shoot him straight through his weak spot, which is that driver's viewport. And as you can see, it's much better to get a good shot off in a heavy tank than a quick shot off, especially in things like this with very, very weak firepower. Now, this varies. If you're fighting something with a lot of armor penetrating capability, sometimes it's better to just push, try to get the advantage and get the first shot off. But I wouldn't recommend it. Since you have your armor, if you can use it, try to. But again, you don't want to rely on it. Now, I'm always going to watch the map when I'm playing. That's one thing I do. I know a lot of people struggle with is just keeping an eye on the map constantly, because that will help you. And just keep an eye on your horizon and look for things like tracer fire, because that will denote enemy tanks. And tracer fire color varies based on country. But, come on, turret. Now, I'm always going to look around when I'm reloading and stuff, because it's not like I'm going to be able to do anything to the enemy tank. Anyway, so looking around is important. That is a KV-1B. Now, one of the weak points on the KVs... Ooh, yep. I'm guessing he got my lower front... Oh, no, he got my driver's viewport. Because, as you can see, I wasn't angled enough. So yeah, let's give that another try. But yeah, as you can see, if you don't angle these KVs, their armor becomes very redundant very quickly. But they also have an extremely large amount of armor. In fact, this has about as much armor as a... Well, not quite as much on the sides, but it has a pretty good amount of armor. It's nearly as much as a Tiger 1. So essentially, you get pretty close to Tiger 1 armor at a very low BR. The only thing that I can think of that is better is maybe the Excelsior, given that it has, I think, over 115 millimeters of armor and 90 mils on the side, which is why you will always see the boxy heavy tanks angled. So what you would want to do is either track them and approach and shoot them in the front or on flat plates, because if a plate isn't flat to you, it's going to be extremely hard to pen. Even with big guns, because there's also just the chance of ricocheting if you're at too much of an angle. So you want to avoid getting side shot and stuff. In these, you always want to take your time. Don't be too overly aggressive. What killed that? Panzer 4H. So there's a T-34 behind me. Oh no. So I'm guessing the T-34 is somewhere over there. So hopefully I can get into cover before he pops out. Now, but as you can see, I got a little bit too reliant on my armor there. That got me killed. So now I'm going to just keep my armor angled. I always pay attention to the map as well when people die, because then you can kind of judge where enemy tanks are. Like if you know a Panzer IV just died to a T-34, well then in that area where that tank just died is a T-34. Obviously that won't help you in sim. Ooh, we got a T-34E. I'm guessing it's somewhere back here. Now, if you're going to stop to engage an enemy, always get your best armor on them first before you do anything else. Because you don't want to leave them the opportunity to shoot you. And that T-34E. Now I know he's on the point because he's capping, so I know there's only so many places he can be. Oh yeah, there he is. Now he's going to try and flank around me, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get my armor facing him, so when he tries to push me, he can't do anything. And I'm going to take out his track here, because sometimes it's just better to disable an enemy to get a better angle on them. And then I'm going to go for his turret streak, because that's where his weak spot is. But as you can see, since I had him disabled and I had my strongest armor on him, I knew he couldn't pen me, so I used that to my advantage to get a good shot off. Because at worst, he could have broken my barrel or one of my tracks. If he broke one of my tracks, I would have just found his weak spot and shot through it. Or if he broke my barrel, I would have just kept myself fully angled to him and slowly repaired and hoped my teammates could come and give me a hand. Or I could repair faster than he could. But yeah, that is kind of the general gist of how to play KV-1 in War Thunder. They all play pretty similarly. All of the KV-1s, like the square body tanks, play pretty similarly. But I'll go through in detail more of those tanks. How I usually angle is if I just turn my turret like this. Once I'm pointing over the corner of my tank, usually that's a pretty good angle. Yeah. To end at. And then, of course, with my turret, since I have a boxier turret, this doesn't work on the KV-1S as well, but it can still get you some more bounces. So it is worth giving a shot if you're desperate, but you want to kind of keep your turret angled as well to the enemy until you're ready to take a shot. And that'll leave them less places to shoot. And you can usually bait out shots at yourself. Use your stronger armor to keep the enemy at bay, and then after they've fired, you can turn, shoot them, take them out. Though, if you're fighting something with a really big gun, you want to avoid that. Avoid pushing into things with big guns. Some tanks have weak enough armor that you can, or weak enough guns that you can just push them. Especially lower BR heavy tanks. Like if you fight like the Churchill 3s and stuff, when you meet Churchills and that on the battlefield, especially with the earlier KV-1s, it's quite hard for them to penetrate you, and it's quite hard for you to penetrate them. So it's pretty mutual, but as long as you play better, you should be able to take them out quite easily. And then, of course, what I'm always doing is I'm on the move, so I'm not getting taken like down by planes and stuff, unless I'm defending. And if I'm going to defend, I'm going to try and get my tank into a position where I can defend in front of me, and I don't have to worry as much about my flanks. And I'm kind of just looking everywhere. I'm going to go back to C now, because I can see the enemies have basically wiped everyone. Sadly, our team is spawn camping, and I don't really enjoy the spawn camping. I kind of wish people wouldn't do it, because I find it more fun to actually have like a fight, because that's why I'm playing the game. I want to fight tanks or planes, or sometimes just milk trucks with machine guns on the back. But either way, I play for the fight. Is there something over there? Thought I saw a muzzle flash, but I mean, that's right by their spawn. But yeah, hopefully you guys found this video informative. As you can see, even if you play it good, sometimes you just get unlucky and they get a good shot on you, or sometimes you'll still just fumble and they can shoot through. Even at an angle, this U-port is still quite a weakness, because as you can see, it's still only 106, whereas over here is going to be much more armor, especially with the added plates. One thing you need to be careful of in the earlier KV-1s, so the 1942 solved this problem with this rolled homogeneous plates right here, but the other KV-1s, you can see the KV-1E has added plates. Now where is the, yes, there it is. It doesn't, which means that its lower glacis is a very weak spot, so you got to be very careful of that. Even when you're angled heavily, this can still be quite a weakness, whereas the rest of your tank is quite strong. Now, yeah, and the reason I don't bring APCR, because I know a lot of people just bring whatever has the most pen. I like to bring a slight mix, which is why I bring APHE BC as well as APCR, because the APCR obviously has got more penetration, not much, and as you can see, if you look at its angled pen, it's actually worse. It's usually slightly worse at penning armor. Like you can see how much worse it is versus these other shells at penning armor at angles. But flat on armor, it's good. So you got to be very careful of when you're using this, especially because its post spin is quite weak versus a shell that explodes in the tank, of course. Now, I hope you guys found this video informative. If there's any specific tanks you guys would like me to go over for their tactics or how to play them, let me know in the comments below. And that is all. Thank you for watching.